Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. We are sponsored by Locker, and you can sign up with Locker with the promo code WIRE and receive a $50 deposit match. I'm Jim Coventry. You can find me at Jim Coventry NFL. We had a great day of action. Let's talk about it right now. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. As I said, we're sponsored by Locker, and I'll repeat, you can sign up for Locker now with the promo code WIRE and receive a $50 deposit match. And again, you can find me at Jim Coventry NFL. Today's show, the biggest takeaways from the Week 5 action. We're filming this during the Sunday night game. It hasn't kicked off yet. Jamie, welcome in the house. Instant reaction number 1. The Ravens beat the Bengals in an overtime thriller. What a game. 41-38. But here are a lot of storylines in this game. So first of all, the Bengals came out with a game plan. Look, these divisional games, they know each other well, right? So what do? Well, the Bengals come out and they say, we're not going to let Derrick Henry beat us tonight. So what do? Loaded up the box. They said, you know what, Lamar Jackson, you can beat us, more power to you. Well, guess what happens? Lamar Jackson takes care of business. 348 yards and 4 touchdowns. How does he do it? A lot of targets to Zay Flowers. Goes over 100 yards, 12 targets. Remember, the last 2 weeks, we'll talk about this later, hardly any targets. The 3 tight ends in the group, they all have good games. Mark Andrews, 4 for 50, just missed a touchdown. Lamar threw a ball behind him. He would have walked in the end zone. Fantasy managers would have loved that. Didn't happen. Isaiah Likely only gets 2 catches. Only gets 13 yards. End zone twice, 2 touchdowns. He cashes. Charlie Kohler beats them all. Well, realistically, 64 yards, 3 catches, and a touchdown. He also had a rush for 2 yards. So this is what the Bengals were giving them. This is what they took. And Derrick Henry, he got a short touchdown when Lamar Jackson was just short of reaching over. And then it looked like his day was lost. He was going to get a touchdown. He was going to get about 30 yards. Talk about how the game gets to overtime later. But they get to overtime. And when they get to overtime, Derrick Henry breaks off a massive run to get him to 92 rushing yards. So again, everybody you needed took care of business some level for you for the Ravens. Ravens were playing behind most of this game. The Bengals had a lead. And it was a good show of a tough team in a divisional matchup. Justin Tucker nails a bomb to get them back in the chance to get to overtime. And he's been struggling. And the kick looked like he started out left. He was like a golfer. The thing hooked back the opposite direction and went straight down the middle. So definitely a great move there. But realistically, what I liked about the Ravens is we saw them get it done on the ground the last 2 weeks. And then this week, the run was taken away and they had answers. Now, the Bengals are a bad defense, so certainly that's in play. But you got to give the Ravens credit because they did what they had to do on a big, big stage here. Now, all that said, the Bengals kind of handed it to them. The Bengals, they get the ball in overtime after Lamar Jackson fumbles, strip sack, fumble. And then all of a sudden, the Bengals go into the shell. They're going to play, I think it was a 54-yard field goal, close, right around there. They play for a 54-yard field goal. They made no aggressive attempt to get the ball deeper downfield. And I'm saying to myself, I know McPherson had a good year a couple of years ago, that Super Bowl year. It's been a while. I go, he's not making this kick. He didn't make the kick. And that's when Derrick Henry comes back and he gets his big run and they win the game. Each team had the ball once before that happened. So that said, tons of credit to the Ravens. They're a winning organization. They won a game they could have lost in a lot of ways. But the Bengals. Now, in this lead up to this game, I was very concerned for the Bengals. I didn't like the matchup. I thought the Ravens defense, I know they're divisional opponents, but I really thought the Ravens would be able to hand it to them and make them one-dimensional and make them struggle. The way teams have been playing the Bengals, they're putting, like we talk about, that deep shell. We're not going to give up big explosive plays. That's how teams go in. And then the Bengals have been saying, it's a lot of room for Chase Brown and Zach Moss to run. So they've been handing him the ball, and they're getting these big chunks of yardage because nobody's there. Well, not only did Chase Brown did better. Zach Moss didn't do much with his pace, but it didn't matter because the passing game ripped up the Ravens. Now, the Ravens aren't the pass defense they were a couple of years ago, even last year. They're not that same passive. They have their struggles. And Jamar Chase and Higgins, they lit them up. It was one of those Jamar Chase games. Only 12 targets. And I say only because you could have games where you get 16, right? And he goes 10 for $192 and 2 touchdowns. Higgins, not to disappoint, 9 for 83 and 2 touchdowns. This is the game that if you were a Bengals fan, that you wanted to see. You wanted to see against a good defense. You want to see Joe Burrow throws for 392 and 5 touchdowns. You wanted to see them play at that high level and light the scoreboard up. Now, the thing they didn't bargain on, this is the problem, not their fault. When you pay your quarterback, they hadn't paid Chase yet. When you pay your quarterback, if you don't get that contract just right, you set up your salary cap, so you got to gut your team. Kansas City did a great job of structuring Mahomes' contract right. Hey, I don't like Cleveland. I don't like they got Watson, but notice they had a lot of talent on defense around him. The guys are getting hurt. That's not his problem, but they structured it to bring players in. That defense has lost so many players in Cincinnati. As good as Burrow was, they ended up losing. They should have won. They ended up losing. And that's the problem. The organization did not handle the other contracts right. But for fantasy, again, ecstatic to see the receivers go. The tight ends did very little. Eric All, 2 for 10. Gesicki, 2 for 31. With all that production from 2 receivers, Chase Brown, 12 for 46. He had 3 more carries than Zach Moss. I think they're figuring it out. The last 2 weeks, Brown seems to have slightly moved ahead in touches on Zach Moss. 3 and 4 targets, Moss 4, and Brown gets a short touchdown, 3 catches, 8 yards, not much. But Chase Brown, I told you earlier, they're getting that room the defense are giving them, and Chase Brown's going to take that, and this is going to work out for him. He's going to end up being a good player. They're both are going to be involved. Moss isn't going all the way away. But the Bengals would be foolish by not bringing the explosiveness of Brown on the field. Foolishness. Because Moss is good, but Brown gives them something extra. And that's something Buffalo Bills have been looking for all those years. Remember the Devin Singletary, the Zach Moss days with them now? They didn't like him because he didn't get those free yards. Didn't get enough of them. And Moss is now in that same situation. 9 for 24. You can't have that. Brown at least is closer to 4 yards per carry. Ravens did a nice job defending the run. So all that said, good for the Bengals for their offense, but their season probably close to circling the drain here. It's not looking good for them right now. I mean, wow, they're 1-4. They're 1-4. Ravens are 3-2. Love the Bengals. The defense is bad. They'll win a number of games, but there's that. But again, great game. This is the game that reminds you why you love NFL football. If you're watching that Ravens-Bengals games, you're like, yes, I love NFL football. And that was it. All right, instant reaction number 2. We have the Texans limp to a win over the Bills. So first of all, the Nico Collins injury was a hammer. This game is 23-20, final 23-20. But early in the game, first quarter, Texans light up the scoreboard with 2 touchdowns. Cam Akers, gets a touchdown. Good thing he does, because if he doesn't score a touchdown, he doesn't do much else. He needed to go 9 for 42, so I'll give him a little credit there maybe. And then Nico Collins, the 76-yard touchdown over the top. But didn't see him the rest of the day. Must have hurt his hamstring on the play. Very, very problematic. So now you got to deal with this. If Nico Collins is out for a significant period of time, this offense is in trouble. I told you before the season, they ditched their 3 fullbacks, which means they weren't going to get the favorable box counts like they had last year. Teams there was like the 49er system, the Dolphin system. Remember, I told you those teams led the league in average depth of pass because defenses had to play the run because of the fullback. They got them all, and they were going to go with their best 11. You got 3 receivers. You got Nico, you got Diggs, you got Dell, and who blames them, right? You got 3 great players. Well, defenses right away, we're shelling you up over the top. Good luck. Collins beats it because he beats it underneath. Collins wins at the second level, and CJ Stroud rips the ball in there. That's how you beat too high. That's how to beat it. But you got to have the players to do it. You got to have the quarterback, and you got to have the receiver that can transition into that big-time runner. That's how you beat too high. Collins does that. They don't have Collins. Diggs right now, underneath slot guy. Tank Dell hasn't done much this year at all. The too highs I thought would ruin him. It really, now not this year, but Jamar Chase he hasn't had those Superman games. He did today. But remember, since they went to those 2 high shells, second year, he didn't have many of those monster games. They figured it out today, but a little different. My point, Nico Collins is so critical. They did not score another touchdown. That was it. They field goals, yes. No more touchdowns after Collins got hurt. That's a problem because they were on their path to a good game without Joe Mixon again, without Damian Pierce, with Cam McDarry. Ogunbowale outplayed him. Ogunbowale, 6 catches, 15 carries. He puts up 87 yards. I'll check the snap count tomorrow, but he totally outplayed Cam Akers. Not an issue there. No great shakes. Diggs goes 6 for 82, gets it done for you. But Tank Dell again, even with Collins missing 3/4 of the game, 4 for 38. The two high shell and Tank Dell, they are not going to agree. Will they have a couple big games? Yes. But realistically, right now they're looking for him. Teams are looking for him. He's not catching anybody off guard. The Bills. I am very, very worried about the Bills. I had a couple of reasons, though, that were okay. I mean, they blow out Miami in week 2. And for fantasy, James Cook had the game, but nobody else. But you can't blame him because Josh Allen only threw 19 times. They blew him out. That's an easy one. You write that off because that's not Josh Allen's fault. You won big. You didn't need to throw, so no problem. Plays Jacksonville and goes off on that Monday night game doubleheader. And all right, all is well. They played Baltimore last week. All right, Baltimore is a bully. Baltimore punched him in the mouth repeatedly. And Josh Allen, 180, no touchdowns, runs for 21 yards, nothing. Cook's terrible. Nobody does anything. Khalil Shakir, 4 for 62 in that game. So we write that one off. We say, all right, the Ravens are the Ravens. The Ravens are the bully, and their defense is better than, what the Bills were able to do. But now they play Houston. No excuse here. This is a perfect matchup for Josh Allen in the group. Khalil Shakir is out. I get it. But come on. Khalil Shakir is a nice player, but he's not fundamentally your offensive success. James Cook, for fantasy, he's fine. 20 for 82 and a touchdown, but nothing big. No real problem. He didn't really establish a tone. He's not a tone setter. That's not really what his game is. But Josh Allen completes 9 of 30 passes for $131 and 1 touchdown. He runs for 54. It's fine. But Keon Coleman, luckily, slipped a tackle because his only catch went for a 49-yard touchdown. When he should have been tackled for like maybe a 12-yard gain. That should have been it. But hey, for fantasy, you'll take it, right? But Kincaid, 34 yards. What biggest issue in this game? Non-field. This is not off the field. Josh Allen, he gets hit on a second. His head bounces off the turf, and he's on the mat for a bit. You could tell he is injured. So they take him to the medical tent. Houston gets the ball back. Within a couple plays, they go 3 and out, I believe. I don't think they may have turned it over. However it is, Buffalo gets the ball back quickly. Mitch Trubisky comes in. Mitch Trubisky plays one play. Josh Allen comes running onto the field, finishes the game. There is no way that in 5 minutes the concussion protocol was done. Not after the hit he took. Somebody upstairs or somebody from the Bills, I don't know who it is. I'm not the expert on that part. Somebody needs to be accountable for that because there is no way he could have passed that in 5 minutes. But he's Josh Allen. Put the cape on, run back out there. It's the man's brain health. Somebody should not have let that happen. The buck probably stops at Brian Dable at some point. I know you want to win a game, but you can't let that happen. Anyway, that's my rant. It's my rant for the day. But realistically, very concerned. And I was concerned going into the season about the Bills. They had a couple big games, and so we were pleased with that. But I said, with the lack of a receiver that scares defenses downfield, I said teams are going to dare them to win over the top, and they don't think they can. And they're going to put as many bodies up front, and they're going to try to limit those windows. 9 for 30 for Josh Allen. I used 16 for 29 against the Ravens. That still isn't great. 180 yards. This week, 131 yards. Ravens and Texans, 2 horrible games. There's blueprints out now. Now, Josh Allen's a great quarterback. Maybe he overcomes it. But those weapons, to me, it's a real problem. Interested to see what happens here, but I am not excited about 3 of the last 4 games. Again, that Miami one's not their fault because they blew them out. And the numbers, that's not a problem. They didn't have to pass. Maybe they could have passed well in that game. They didn't need to. James Cook tore him up on the ground. So fine enough there. But that's it. All right, everybody, let's talk about Locker, the new innovative fantasy app where you try to predict upcoming plays on the field. When I play the Blitz contest in Locker, I love that I can pay attention to game flow and player usage and make predictions about upcoming drives. The points I get give me a chance to finish in the money. in a 50-50 locker contest. Locker has a bunch of different contests. They're all centered around answering questions in real time about upcoming plays and drives. The more accurate you are, the more money you can win. We also have a special RotoWire League, Locker League. You can play for $10. Format simple. You can play as many locker contests throughout the season as you want, your best 10 scores. So you can join anytime because there's games all the time. Get 10 games easy, count it toward the league standings. You sign up for Locker with the code WIRE, WRIE, WIRE. If I can spell, I'd be great. And receive a $50 deposit match. Again, join the RotoWire Locker League and showcase your play calling ability and skills. Real cash on the line. Instant reaction number 3. The Jaguars, they get their first win over the Colts. This is a thriller. 41 points scored in the fourth quarter. Randy, I appreciate you, man. This, for the record, is better than Sunday Night Football, and it may have kicked off now, and I'll get to that game soon. But yeah. Anyway, Uncle Ted's in the house. Jay Red, Jamie, appreciate y'all. All right, instant reaction number 3. Repeating it. Jaguars get the win over the Colts. As I said, 41 points scored in the fourth quarter of that game. It ends on a long field goal, like Uncle Ted said. He gotta give it to the kickers. Cam Little hits a long field goal to win the game. Kyle, I'm with. I did actually use the over 6.5 receptions on CD Lamb. So speaking of that question, definitely go with that. So as I'm saying though, Cam Little hits the field goal, they win. Wild game. Trevor Lawrence. Now look, people ask me about start sit for Trevor Lawrence. I told him this. I go, he could have a big game. He could have a real big game. I said, but the last year and a quarter, Trevor Lawrence has had a lot of good games and not done well for fantasy. So I said, if you had another good option, take your chances, but I would start the other guy. Now, Trevor Lawrence throws for 371, 2 touchdowns. So it's a good game, but it's not like 2 rushes for 4 yards. So it isn't like the game of all games, but it was still a great game, right? So it's like 27 fantasy points probably. So it was a big game. But the body of work, he's had good matchups and he's like not done well. So that's the recommendation. I tell people that. It's like, I don't tell you to sit a guy for sure, but I say, just look at the body of work and we kind of go with that. Here's the biggest takeaway from this game though. What happened to Travis Etienne? I didn't see any injury reports. I saw him on the sideline. Didn't appear to be getting any medical work. He was standing there on the sideline, cheering his teammates on. He was a ghost in the second half of this game. Now, over the course of the game, he does catch 6 for 43, so he gets it done there, but 6 carries for 17 yards. It was a bust because who do you see on the second half field? Tank Bigsby going off. 13 carries, 101 and 2 touchdowns. He even caught a 28-yard pass. Dearness Johnson got 2 catches, 3 targets, and a rush. Travis Etienne sitting on the sidelines in a great matchup. Now, this is a week if you're going to have Travis Etienne, you play him because the Colts know DeForest Buckner, and they've been struggling against the run. They're bad across the board. Kwity Paye was out. So, wheels up matchup. Well, yeah, Tank Bigsby showed us. You could crush this defense. 129 yards for 2 touchdowns for Tank Bigsby. Now, somebody in a deep league started him as a flex. A deep league, 3 flex or something like that. You started him there, but most people didn't start him. Why would you? He had the 7 for 90 last week, but he had 1 long run. You're okay, throw that away. But Etienne, I don't know what the deal is. And I know, and of course, they win the game. So they win the game. So now Doug Peterson has his job again. Etienne doesn't have more than 13 carries in a game this year. And I know they always limit his work. They're insane. Insane. Superstar potential. He's not like the running back of all running backs, but he's an outstanding running back. Runner, receiver. I know the line's bad, but you got to play him. I don't know what's going on there, but Travis Etienne, I'm nervous if you got him for fantasy right now. The fact he had the 6 for 43, he got a little done for PPR. This might be I don't know if you could sell if you're rostering him. Try, see what you get for him. Somebody might not realize the game script. They may just think it's a weird game. But I have no answers. Fortunately, Christian Kirk gets it done with a long 60-yard catch late, 4 for 88. He only had 4 targets. Brian Thomas, he gets it done. 8 targets, 5 for $122. He's had 3 good games in a row. I don't know what they did to Calvin Ridley last year, but they should have done what they did for Brian Thomas for Calvin Ridley. They didn't do that. Brian Thomas having a great rookie year. He's having a great rookie year. So fantastic props to him. They should get Evan Ingram back soon, I would think. Randy saying that maybe Etienne had a shoulder issue. Yeah, and I'm waiting to find that out. So hopefully we find out something there. But if that's the case, that would at least explain it. But still, the fact is, ETN has had more than 13 carries in a game all season. So, and hopefully that explains it because we'll have to look at that and see. But I tried to check RotoWire. I checked a couple other places, but I think Randy might be honest. I checked Twitter, and I saw it was like people flaming about it. But yeah. So anyway, Evan Ingram hopefully back next week. But Brenton Strange does go for 24 and a touchdown. So if you needed him and you used him, you got it done there. But again, the Jags got their win. But realistically, it prolongs the inevitable. Keeps around the coach, Doug Peterson, Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator. They just need to let them go. They need to give their quarterback a new environment. And I know you don't like to do that in middle season because how do you bring in a new offensive system? But they just need to get rid of them. And that win, that stalls it out a little bit. What do you say about the Colts? I mean, look, Joe Flacco, they're trailing. Joe Flacco threw for 359, 3 touchdowns. He even ran for 22. He took off and he was out running a couple defenders. They couldn't catch him. He got out of bounds before he got hit. That was stunning. Stunning to see him outrun a couple defenders. Could not believe it. Pretty much everybody got a piece of the action in the passing game here. Fortunately, Trey Sermon got a little love late. He had a couple runs that broke through. He did get a late touchdown, but Tyler Goodson outplayed him in the first half, and it looked like Goodson was going to take over. And then fortunately, it flipped a little bit for him. So if you started Sermon, at least he got 6 catches in that game. Goodson got 3. Goodson actually was close on the yard despite like half the touches. Goodson ends up with 57 yards and about 63 for Sermon, but Goodson had half the touches. So that was really, really weird. And yeah, Jamie points out, man, the Cleveland Browns, they totally blew it. They didn't bring Flacco back because they didn't want to put pressure on Deshaun Watson. Bad move there because look, I have no idea. But the Browns defense is on the field all day, every day. So their defense doesn't look great this year. They're on the field way too much. Another story for another day. But yes, Joe Flacco for fantasy was beautiful. And hopefully you started him if you needed him. There were people that asked, if he's out there, get Flacco, start him. Josh Downs hit the game. 12 targets, 9 for 69, 2 weeks in a row. He is Flacco's guy. At least Michael Pittman got in the end zone, had 5 catches, not a lot of yardage, and so he got it done for you there. But realistically, you're probably sitting Alec Pierce because Mario Puig and I talk about on the RotoWire XM show that usually Flacco doesn't gun downfield a lot, but he had 2 big plays. Alec Pierce, 3 for $134 and a touchdown, so that was big. They even got Adonai Mitchell involved. All that said, offensive line, Will Freeze, their guard, he had a serious leg injury. That whole line is beat up right now. I don't know how long Jonathan Taylor will be out, but and I don't know what Richardson says. Hopefully Richardson probably back next week, but that's not going to be good for Josh Downs and Michael Pittman probably. So overall, kind of a mess with Indy, but Flacco it's a great story. Flacco's a great story, and we love that, right? All right, I'm going to go over more reactions after we take a short break. All right. Instant reaction number 4. The Cardinals upset the 49ers. 24-23. Crazy game. Jake Moody, the kicker for the Niners, gets injured. They've got to go on these crazy 4th downs that are not in field goal range, but not quite in punting range. They're too close to punt, too long they don't have a kicker, so they can't bring somebody weird out to try to kick a short one. So they go for this 4th and 17 and they miss. This is late in the game. And then the Cardinals get the ball. They capitalize. James Conner hadn't done a whole lot, but in the second half, he just ran it. In the 4th quarter, he ran it down the 49ers' throats, ends up 19 for 86 on the ground. 100 scrimmage yards. He caught a couple passes. Connor was a beast late in this one. He didn't do much in the first half at all. But again, he just ground them down. And Kyler Murray, told people to start him. And the passing numbers weren't great. 195, a touchdown to pick. He runs for 83 yards and a touchdown. That's obviously he had 3 games in the 47 plus range, 83 rushing yards. Kyler Murray had himself a day on the ground. And the receiver, Marvin Harrison's getting a lot of attention, and it's not working out every week. 5 for 36, 2 for 36, and 7 targets. Michael Wilson, 5 for 78. Just missed a touchdown. Looked good there. Dortch does nothing because they really didn't need him. The mobility of the quarterback, they're kind of evading the pass rush there. But weird game because the 49ers, they had a defensive score. It was just a very weird game. And the 49ers, there was no rhythm to their offense because they were the Arizona was on the field a lot. because of the couple short possessions. And so Purdy throws 35 passes, only completes 19 of them, which for him, super low. And then imagine it. People were thinking about sitting Ayuk. I told him, just play him one more week. 8 for 147 on 12 targets. What's the fallout? We talk about this all the time. They're the Avengers. Not everybody's going to eat. So who's the loser? Deebo Samuel. 1 catch, 11 yards, 3 carries, 9 yards, 20 scrimmage yards, 1 catch. We're done. I told people about Juwan Jennings. I go, look, I know he had the great game 2 weeks ago. He's the number 5 option in the offense. Can't play him. He goes 1 for 13 on 4 targets. That's it. Can he have a big game? Yes. Is he a very good player? Yes. You're the number 5 target in the offense. You got Ayuk, you got Samuel, you got Kittle, any order. You got Jordan Mason, the runner, 5th option. Can't do it. Just can't do it. Brock Purdy, 244 and a touchdown, 2 picks. 2 picks. One of them was bad. Didn't read the defense well on that. Mason, 14 for 89, 1 catch for 9. So floor game, that's it. But the 49ers, they just weren't on the field enough and made some mistakes. Arizona was playing kind of fast on defense. I don't know what it was. Don't know what it was. Again, we talk about the subliminal switch, right? I believe that the 49ers weren't mentally there when they played the Rams. And I think the same thing happened in this game here. They just weren't mentally sharp with the game. But they've got to fix it soon. They should make the playoffs, right? You think? But they got to start winning some games here, because when McCaffrey gets back, they just got to be in position to make the playoffs, get him healthy, and then see what you do. And hopefully the defensive players keep dropping too. So they're going to have to get a lot of health issues there. Hargrave's gone for the year as well. All right, let's do one more. Instant reaction number 5. The Giants stun the Seahawks. What do you even say? 29-20. And here's the thing. Early in the game, Giants drive the ball all the way down the field. What happens? They get the ball to the 1-yard line. Eric Gray gets 2 shots to score. Second one, I thought he got in. Fumbles. It gets returned the length of the field for a touchdown. So instead of the Giants being up 7-0, Seahawks are up 7-0. Basically, Seahawks did very little until garbage time after that. They scored 20 points in the game, but 29 points to the Giants. The Giants basically rocked them. I mean, this should have been way worse. Again, Gray doesn't get in. If he gets that in, this game is a complete massacre. Just a massacre. Tyrone Tracy steps in for Devin Singletary, 18 for $129. Eric Gray started out hot. He had 3 catches for 50 yards early. So if you played him, you got 8.4 PPR. You can live with that. But Tracy, ends up with like 14 PPR points. So not much more because he doesn't get the touchdown, but he looked good. And here's the question. Did Tracy earn more time? Is Tracy somebody now? Is Devin Singletary's been fine for them, but Tracy's the rookie. Did he earn more work when Singletary's back? Maybe. If I'm the coaching staff, you got to give the kid a look. He looked really good, and Seattle's a decent defense. They got most of their guys back from last week. I think the only one who was out was Boya Mafe, but last week they had like 5 in the front, 7 out. So there's that. So Tracy should get a look here. Now, Darius Slayton has the game, but here's why. Neighbors is out, right? But remember, Darius Slayton has a really good rapport with Daniel Jones. They have a good connection. It was like 700 yards a season for Slayton when they were playing together. So with Neighbors out, Slayton gets 11 targets, goes 8 for $122 and a touchdown. But again, Slayton's a good player. But when you're the number 3 target in the offense, when Neighbors is there, then you're not getting anything. You're getting a couple targets and call it a day. So the 1 week thing, and that's it. And, Reek Woolen went out with an injury in the second half. But that certainly didn't help, because I thought Woolen would have been a perfect matchup for Slayton. But Slayton was already getting it done. So props to Slayton. Wan'Dale Robinson, look, he keeps getting it done. Only 6 for 36, but he finds the end zone. So the 2 weeks he hasn't had not big yards, but good yardage. He's had a touchdown. So he's cashed every week for you. 9 targets in this one. Theo Johnson makes an appearance, 5 for 48. But again, Daniel Jones, 23 of 34, 257 and 2 touchdowns. He had a great game. Look, the Giants did fine. Give them credit. Pat them on the back. Seattle's one of these weird teams. Seattle, a new coaching system, they just don't show up for games. Coming off that Monday night loss against Detroit, and they're at home, I figured they'd be up for this game. They didn't show up at all. Their offense, flat until it was garbage time. Then in garbage time, the last fourth quarter, they put up a ton of production. Everybody ends up doing fine for fantasy, despite they did nothing. Geno, 284, rushes for 72 yards, most of that in the last couple drives. Kenneth Walker does nothing on the ground, 7 for 57 through the air. Metcalf, floor game, 4 for 55. Smith and Jigba, 4 for 30, but he finds the end zone in garbage time late. So they all did something. But again, this was just a horrific effort by the Seahawks, and they should be ashamed of the way they played. They did not show up at home in a game they need to win against the Seahawks. Inexcusable. The defense had people back. They had no answers. So Mike McDonald, early in the season, he looked really good. The Lions, we can explain they had injuries. No excuse here. They looked horrible. Now, hopefully they can collect their thoughts, figure some things out. They've got talent on defense. Their offensive line is not good, and that was the problem. That's the problem. The offensive line is a real problem. And the Giants are sneaky good at pressure. Sneaky good. They get to the quarterback. When they see a weak line, they feast on it, and they did. So really, that was the underlying current I didn't mention. You pressure them, you slow the run down early. That's a real problem. So Seattle going forward, here's what I want to point out. If they're playing a team that could bring heat, be very careful. There might be games that can overcome it, but if you can bring heat, this team's at a real disadvantage. All right, RotoWire covers all the fantasy sports. You know you can get a free 2-day trial, no credit card. Head over to rotowire.com/pod. We want to thank our sponsor, Locker. You can sign up for a Locker with the promo code WIRE, WIRE, and receive a $50 deposit match. We want to thank everyone for listening. Come back next week for another episode of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.